Okay, we are in chapter 10 of Revelation this week. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. Now, first of all, let's start with the identity, or rather, let me back up and say that let's start with what we have here, time-wise. This is another interlude or intermission in time. We should be getting used to those now. This is an intermission before the seventh trumpet and seven bowl judgments. And we see this this angel come down, and now to the identity of this angel, some have speculated down through the ages that this is Christ himself, but we really have no reason to think that this is Christ, because for the simple fact that all the other instances in Revelation where we see Christ, he's plainly identified. The book of Revelation wants us to know when we have a clear vision of Christ. And remember, we talked about it, I don't know if I mentioned it last week when Philip was teaching or when I was teaching the week before, but the Bible is always to be taken literally unless it gives us an indication of when we're to take something symbolically. And just like that, in this book, the Bible is giving us clear indication of when we're to see the Christ, or when we're to see the Messiah here in this chapter. Any other time we see an angel, it's literally an angel, literally a messenger from God, or an angel in service of God. Let's see. I think I got a note here about Ezekiel 1:28. I don't remember what I was wanting to do, but let's look at it. Trouble sometimes with writing Bible verses down and not making a notation about what you're doing with them. Ezekiel 1:28 says, "As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake." Okay, so this is talking about the rainbow and the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. We see here, I like this a lot, because here we're seeing God reclaim that ancient symbol, that ancient covenant he made with man about the rainbow. And we mentioned this early on in the study. We see the rainbow being misused right now as a symbol, don't we? You see people traipsing around with the rainbow that are definitely not using it as it intended, definitely not using it as a covenant with God. That, one of the most early covenants that God made with man, he used that rainbow as a covenant with man that he'd never again destroy the world with water. That was an ancient covenant with God. Here again, we see the rainbow come back into the picture, representing the covenant with God. It's not being flaunted about as a symbol of degradation and degeneracy, but as a symbol of the power of God. Now, the rainbow was on the head of this angel. He was clothed in a cloud, and his face was as it were the sun. His face, he had this brightness about him, and his feet were as pillars of fire. That means that indicates resoluteness, determination and strength is what the language means there. That's symbolism. And he had in his hand a little book open. And now this really literally means a small book here. This is relative in size to John. We'll see this in a minute. And he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot on the earth. Now this just simply means that this angel, this means control of the whole earth, the sea and the land. That's what it symbolizes. And cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now, we've talked about the number 7 before. 7 in the Bible is the number of completion or perfection. These 7 thunders, symbolizes the completion that is coming over the land and over the earth. The earth is literally going to be finished. Now, some other interpreters, and when I say interpreter, I'm using that word loosely because they've not been correct in their interpretation. They've been false teachers. Over the years have taken these 7 thunders and have tried to make all sorts of things out of them. The Roman Catholic scholastics tried to talk about them being the 7 bulls of the Pope that were made after, I believe, the Protestant Reformation, and then you had some of the Protestant reformers tried to make them something about Martin Luther answering the Pope and different things. I don't remember some of the specifics there, but needless to say, neither one were true. We don't know precisely, any details about these 7 thunders, but we do know all we need to know, and that is that they represent the completion of God over the earth, his final dealings with the corruption that has run rampant in the created order. God is finished with the degeneracy and the corruption of the created order. We're seeing him putting things to rights. The whole creation has groaned ever since sin came into the world. We know that when Adam and Eve sinned, it didn't just bring sin to them, but it brought sin as an inherited illness from one generation to the next, from their children down to Noah, and then, of course, every other living being except for the Noah and his children and the animals they brought aboard the ark. And of course, they weren't sentient beings, but Noah and his family is what we're talking about. Noah and his family, which of course brings us down to us, that was a stopgap measure. God could have destroyed the earth right then, but instead he chose to destroy everything and give man a fresh start for a while with Noah and his children, but he didn't deal with it at that time for his own reasons. So he wound back the clock for a while with a stopgap measure. But now we're built back up to this time now where we see sin run rampant again. And God, it may be tomorrow, it may be today, it may be 100 years from now, but God will get to this point here where we're at right now in this book, where he's going to bring an end to the created order, where creation is no longer going to groan because of corruption. And again, that doesn't just mean us, but we are definitely the children of Adam, the children of Noah, and we've inherited that sin. We've inherited that illness from them. But not just them, it infected the whole created order, and it's all going to be rolled up like a scroll. The earth, all of the solar system, the the galaxy, all the created order is going to be rolled up, and it's going to be made like new, and it's going to be made as God intended it to be from the beginning. And this is, we're seeing an interlude before that begins. And when the seven thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and sware by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven, and the things that therein are, and the earth, and the things that therein are, and the sea, and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. Now, let's see. Let's look at, I'm going to look at Nehemiah 9:6. I'll read that to you. My fingers will work. Thou, even thou, art Lord alone. Thou hast made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their host, the earth, and all things that are therein, the seas, and all that is therein, and thou preservest them all, and the host of heaven worship thee. And that sums up that verse, but I'm not sure why I wanted that verse by itself. Well, again, that's what I get for writing verses down without writing the context. I've written that down a long time ago. But anyway, that is a good summary for that particular couple of verses there. We'll stop right there for just a minute while I'm getting my bearings, and this is a good time for any questions or comments. Anybody? Okay, if not, let me say something about this, that there should be time no longer. Now, it's not so much that there is not going to be any more time, it's that there is going to be waiting no longer, would be a better, way in our modern vernacular to think of this. Because there will be no more waiting. The time is at hand, in other words. There's going to be no more waiting. things that have come are now at hand. In other words, judgment is at hand. I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this particular lesson, and just imagine, we've got the whole book, the prophets and even the disciples and the apostles of Christ could only, the Bible says the prophets inquired diligently, about the things that we have, we can just pick up and read at our leisure. And it's really sad, too, when you think about it. People have Bibles, multiple copies of the Bible at home, gathering dust in a lot of instances, and don't bother to pick it up. When men died, gave their lives for the translation of the Bible. And, now we have Bibles gathering. And I told somebody the other day, when the English Bible was first translated into the common tongue, they had to chain it down in the churches and into the pulpits to keep people from stealing it. Now you can't give it away. They literally had to chain it down to the pulpits because people were so hungry for the word in the English language, or in the other European languages, whichever language it was translated into, German, French, English, whatever the case may be. In our case, English. They would chain it down to the pulpits to keep people from stealing it. And we're not talking about a little Bible, which I've got an exceptionally small one here this morning, but we're talking about one of these big old pulpit Bibles. They had to chain them down to keep people from carrying them off. We've got the full copy of the Word. We can read anytime we want to at a decent price. Lots of times people will give you one. There's very few churches that you couldn't go to and tell them you needed a Bible that they wouldn't give you one. And the prophets diligently inquired about the revelation that we've got freely given to us. The apostles, even though they walked with Christ, would have loved to have known. Now, we don't know ourselves, though, about all these things that'll come to pass here, because we'll be gone. The church will be taken out when these things come to pass. But God has given us a little glimpse. People have asked me, what is the point in us knowing about Revelation when we're going to be gone? What's the point in studying Revelation? Well, for one thing, God has given us the blessing of having a glimpse of what will be when we're gone. Another thing, we can have the ability of preaching to those and teaching those that will be here for whatever reason after we're gone. We'll interact with a lot of people in our daily lives that will be here if time stands after we've gone on. And it's good to plant a seed with these people that may be left behind when we go on to be with the Lord. And there'll be lots of Bibles left laying around for those that are lost. And it's good to plant a seed with those people, so they'll have some idea of what to look forward to. There's just lots of reasons why it's good for us to study the parts of Revelation that will come to pass when the church is no longer here. Not to mention the parts that will pick up, after telling us what we can expect when we're in heaven and when the millennium comes. We've not even got to that yet. The things that we can expect to enjoy in the millennium and in heaven. We've not even got to that yet. Okay, we'll move on unless somebody's got something they want to say. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again, and said, Go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel, and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it, and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. Now, the reason that the little book would be sweet in his mouth when he ate it was because of the word itself is sweet. But it was bitter in his stomach when it went down because of the judgment that had to come to pass. That's we're talking about symbolism here. When the judgment came to pass, all these things that had to come to pass, that was bitterness. The word is sweet, but the judgment to come was bitter. Now,
the eating it, he was to study it.
Yes.
He didn't really eat it. He studied it very carefully.
Yes. That's exactly right.
And the sweetness was the good things.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord was taking back over and doing away with all this evil, but the bitterness was the judgment and all the people that had to die because of it.
That's right. That's exactly right. God's word is always sweet, but the judgment that comes out of it is sometimes bitter to those that are not prepared for it. For those that are prepared for it, it is sweet. That's a very good point, Doug. Now, verse 11 says, And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. And this is a setup. This is setting Philip up for chapter 11. When the seventh trumpet is about to sound. Like I said, this chapter here is an interlude, an intermission, and things really break loose in the 11th chapter. We have the seventh trumpet and the seven bowl judgments, and we have the two witnesses. Very exciting chapter coming up next week. But we're done a little earlier than I thought we'd be. Anybody have any comments or questions?
So people will be saved after the Christians are gone?
Yes, most emphatically, yes.
Those will be the people that are living in the millennium that have children. All the Christians like us, if the rapture was today, we would be taken up. And that'd be all the Christians there was. But they had to be Christians saved to populate the earth. And it'd only be saved ones. But it says that the devil's going to come back in 1,000 years. There's unsaved people in there that he can influence and put on his side.
That's right.
So what about those that are living now and they've had an opportunity?
What's that? Say that again, Betty.
I know what she's talking about. There is some people who say that if you have rejected the Lord after the rapture, you'll never get another chance. Is that basically about
They're
what you're saying?
living now, and they're going through the tribulation, and they've already had opportunities to be saved.
If you're alive and in the rapture, you'll have you'll still have an opportunity to be.
I think that when they said that, there is some scripture that sort of goes along with what she is saying, or people have said, that you will not get a chance. But I think that's people that have turned their back completely on him and even worked against him.
Well, yeah, no, but now only God knows
Right.
who those people. If you're apostate,
Yeah, after the rapture, but they have rejected God now, and they're going to go through that tribulation.
yeah, if they're hardened,
The word he uses, apostate.
Yeah.
That's what the ones that will not be able to.
exactly. But if they're hardened to the point of being apostate, God knows who they are. Yeah, only God knows who they are.
Some kid who's heard the word and just didn't make that decision.
Yeah,
They-
exactly.
They're not ruled out.
There are people, only God knows. You know, God may have called you 2 or 3 times, and you know, you may have a 4th or 5th chance or 1,000 chances. But then again, you may be hardened, you know, after the 5th chance. Only God knows. We don't know. Charles Spurgeon said, if talking about the elect now, said if we could go around, if the elect had a yellow stripe up their backs, and we could go around and flip everybody's shirt tail up and see that yellow stripe, know they were part of the elect, then, you know, it would be easy. But since it's not, we have to assume that everybody can be saved. And so, you know, God knows if they're apostate or not. Now, yeah, I'm assuming that a lot of people that, you know, survive the rapture that way will be among the apostate that were here. But only God knows. Only God knows. And we won't be here to wrestle with whether they're apostate or not anyway.
And now those who take the mark of the beast during that 7-year period of time, once they take that mark of the beast, it's over.
That's right. And you cannot unwittingly, unknowingly take the mark of the beast either.
No.
It's not something you say, oops, I took the mark of the beast. You know, I accidentally took the mark of the beast. What do I do now? No, it's not something you unwittingly or unknowingly do. It will be a conscious decision, you know, to become Satan's. That's just like people wrestle with, you know, like we were talking about the vaccine earlier, you know, or people worried about chips in their arms, and, you know, well, I don't want a chip in my arm anyway, you know. I don't want anybody tracking me, but that's a whole different decision from whether or not you're taking the mark of the beast. I don't want anybody tracking me. That's you know, I'm not saying some of that might not be a dress rehearsal for the mark of the beast, but it's not the mark of the beast. Because if it was the mark of the beast, you would know you were making a pact with the devil. What do you say, Philip?
Yeah, that's right. Mark of the beast. When you take it, you have basically traded off your soul to Satan. For the next few years, you'll be able to buy and sell. And you'll take the mark of the beast for that privilege to buy and sell and not be persecuted by the beast, by that government. But in that deal, when you make that deal, though, you've traded your soul for that privilege.
Oh, I want to say one other thing. We were talking about, you know, the prayers of the tribulation saints. You know, Remember we talked about, they said, how long, O Lord? During this interlude that we're talking about, that's when their prayers will begin to be answered. That's when that's when their number will be filled. And,